Welcome back. Now in this session we will look into Data Hub. Let's now navigate to the Data Hub. Data Hub basically allows us to manage the data assets within Synapse. And here you'll see two tabs, one called Workspace and another one called Linked. The Workspace is the place where actually you will see all the assets that exist within Synapse itself. This could be things like a SQL databases, external tables, views, Spark databases, tables, and things like that. So just to demonstrate, let's create a database. So you've got two options. One is to write a SQL command to create a database, which you can do that in Develop, where you can click on the plus here and then click SQL Database. As you can see, you've got the option to create a serverless or a dedicated SQL pool type SQL database. We don't have a dedicated SQL pool yet, so let's go with a serverless, and I'm going to call this one as Demo, and then let's click Create. As you can see, that database is listed here, and now you can go ahead and create external tables or views and things like that underneath that database, and everything will be listed here. Similarly, if you created a Spark database or Data Explorer database, all of those will be listed here. So that's what you'll see under the Workspace tab. Let's now talk about the Link tab. The main difference is that everything you see under the Workspace tab lives in the Workspace, whereas in the case Linked, all the assets you see under Linked belong to an external data source, and we just have a link from the Synapse Workspace to that data source. So this could be an external ADLS Gen 2 account, or a Cosmos DB, or a standard Azure Blob storage. So if you remember when we created the Synapse Workspace, we also created an ADLS Gen 2 storage account as a primary storage account with a container in it. And we said actually we wanted Synapse to be able to manage the storage account. So that's the storage account you are trying to see here, and you will be able to access the container from here as well. So we can upload a new file, and you can create a new folder and all of that kind of things. So similarly, you can connect to Cosmos DB. So in order to do that, you come over to the plus and then you click Connect to External Data, and then it lists you that type of data sources you can connect to. So at the time of recording, the data sources which are supported are the standard Azure Blob Storage account, ADLS Gen 2 account, the two variations of Cosmos DB APIs, SQL API, and the MongoDB API, as well as Azure Data Explorer. But I'm sure there will be more data sources are added in the future. But that's what we currently got. Let's cancel from there. So as we said previously, this WS container is something we said Synapse would be using to keep any information it needs to keep. But in order to keep some data, we can create new containers in it and we'll still be able to access them from Synapse. So let's create a new container called Demo for our demo purposes here. Unfortunately, at the moment, there is no option to create a container here. You'll have to go over to the Azure portal and do that. So let's do that ourselves. So I'm in the Azure portal. If you're new to Azure, there are quite a lot of options to achieve the same thing. So to find the storage account, you could either look in the recent resources, and this is the storage account we want to access, and you can click from here, or you can go to resource groups. Again, if you're not seeing resource groups here, you will be able to go to the menu and then click on resource groups, and then you'll see the resource group, which is our Synapse course RG, and then you can see the resources underneath, which will be the two, which is the Synapse Workspace and the Lake Storage, or you can go to all the resources, and then you can find the Data Lake Storage as well. So the Data Lake Storage account we created was called Learn Synapse Step by Step DL. So let's find that. And that's the storage account. So let me click on the storage account, and then if you got to containers, you will be able to create a new container. So that one is the one we initially created. But let's click on container, and then let's say we want to call it demo, and you can keep the access as private and then click create. So the content is now created. Let's switch over to the Synapse Workspace or Synapse Studio, and if I do a refresh, I should be able to see the other container as well. So as you can see, I've got the other container, which is demo. And it'll be nice if we can put a file, and then I can show you other things as well. So let's upload a file. I'm going to make sure the file's available on the course material as the resources. So let me go to upload, and then I've got a file on my desktop called taxizone.csv, and let's click open. So all that file contains is the taxi zones in New York. So let me click. Okay. And that file is now uploaded. So as you can see, the options on the top has now changed. Apart from just having the upload and new folder and things like that, we got a new SQL script, new notebook and things which we are going to explore in the Develop Hub. So I'm going to leave them aside. But there are a couple of things you might want to know so you can manage access. So, for example, you can restrict access to other users and things like that here. And the other thing is you can go to properties and you can get the URL for the file path as well. So that's the ABFSS path and that's the HTTP URL as well. So those are things you might want to do at some point, so it's better to know. So the other things you can do here or within the container, if you wanted to create a new folder, you can create a new folder. It's only a problem creating a container here. Once you've created the container, you can do everything you would normally do in Azure Portal or in Storage Explorer. There's one more thing I want to take you through before we finish the Data Hub. So when we went through the Knowledge Center, I said we can bring in sample datasets and explode them within Synapse. So let's bring in a sample dataset and link that storage account here. So in order to do that, you would go to the plus here again and then look at Browse Gallery and you will be able to see everything. But we're interested in dataset now. So let's bring in the dataset for the Bing COVID-19 data. In order to do that, you click on that and then click Continue and you click on Add Dataset. So that dataset would now be added. As you can see, it's still creating it and that's successfully created. And as you can see, that Bing COVID-19 dataset has now been added to the Azure Blob Storage as a linked dataset here. So you will be able to run SQL scripts or write new notebooks and things like that on top of this data. So it's as easy as that in order to bring some data from elsewhere. So that's the end of this session. In the next session, we'll talk about the Developer Hub. I'll see you then.